All right, we are live here with the man, as you might see in the description, the inimitable, right? Cannot be copied, David Osk here. Happy New Year, everyone. You know, we wanted to come on and talk about inevitable, part of the journey to success, and whatever success might mean for you in whatever area of life that might be, right? Whether that's success in your family, in your marriage, right? One of the things, whether it's success spiritually, whether it's success in your business. Obviously here on, we're on different platforms, LinkedIn. A lot of this is about, in your business or your career. It's inevitable you're going to experience setbacks, right? There is no easy path or process to success. And if someone tries to tell you that there is, tries to sell you that, you should be extremely skeptical and probably recognize it's, excuse my language, bullshit, right? But how you deal with setbacks, how you deal with self-doubt, how you deal with the inevitable fears, insecurities, anxieties, jealousy, envy, all these things that tend to derail people, right? And it's the beginning of the new year. So I know a lot of people are filled with hope and optimism, an expectation of new goals they've set and, resolutions. And the research shows that I think it's within 2 weeks, right? Over 90% of the people will have already abandoned their resolutions. And so we want to talk about, what do you do when you experience setback? You get opposition, whether it's from a loved one, whether it's from a stranger, wherever it might come from, right? And we believe that navigation systems provide a really great blueprint, right? A really great example of what to do, what we can copy in order to make sure that we end up at the ultimate destination, right? That we are able to get to that successful marriage and have a 50-year anniversary, right? Or to have a business that continues to grow and serves the lifestyle that you want. So David Osk, Mr. The man, the legend, what do you have to say about this? What's any thoughts or experiences or?
And so, what's funny is today is January 5th, 2022, and I've had 4 conversations today with people who have been, to say that they need to, course correct and navigate right through some obstacles is an understatement. Completely got the rug pulled out from under them. And so, when I think about those scenarios, which we all go through, I just feel like this whole idea of course correcting and getting back on track, it's absolutely vital. Like, they're going to, these folks are going to have months, maybe a couple of years of some course correcting. But here's what I think is I guess really front and center for me is if you don't know what you're course correcting to, or better yet, who you're course correcting to, right? And I'm talking about you, yourself. Good luck. And we have so much influence in our lives, all the talking heads, all the shoulds, all the, all that stuff. And if I have not defined success for me, those things that just make my energy rise, give me goosebumps, like, again, life's hard. Life is really hard. Sometimes we get kicked in the stomach. Sometimes I kick myself in the stomach. I mean, we live in a broken world. But again, if I feel like I'm in the ditch and yet I don't know who I'm course correcting to, and those things that I've defined as success, I'm probably going to go in the other ditch and just keep going back and forth, right? As if the road, as it were, would seem crowned, as opposed to this nice, firm, flat place that I can step firmly on and push forward into things that are meaningful to me.
Yeah, one of my favorite all-time books, the books that actually got me interested in psychology, was The Road Less Traveled from M. Scott Peck. And I don't remember exactly what the first line is, but it's something like the life is difficult, right? And there's just something universally true about that. That's why he wrote it in that book. I just sold, 15 million copies or whatever. And I was on, Facebook the other day, and I'm reading, some friends, some people that I'm connected to in various ways, but they're kind of boasting about all these things that they've accomplished and all these things, right? And then I start socially comparing myself, in a way that wasn't particularly favorable. So I don't know, there's something about just acknowledging, hey, yeah, have we accomplished a lot, right, in this past year? Is there a lot that I have to be grateful for? Undeniably true. But I also appreciate just kind of the real, I'm going to be honest, right? I experience pretty consistent setbacks. I battle myself, right? And or the journey to success, it is
Yeah.
an eternal battle, right? And that is the biggest battle that I have is how do I deal with my own fears, my own insecurities, right? How do I deal with the self-doubt? If I can't master that, good luck, right? Trying to make sure I get to these destinations. There's a great quote, and I don't remember who said it. So if there's anybody that happens to be listening and they know, would love to, for them to chime in on this. But it says you go through life one of two ways. You either having answered the question, who am I? Or you try to find the answer through everyone that you meet. And I love that response, right? It reminds me kind of what you were just saying a second ago, where if you don't know who you are, then your direction's constantly going to be shifting because you're constantly looking for validation, affirmation, right? You're looking for people to define that for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's good to see you, William.
Nice.
And so, but when you know who you are, right? When you really have anchored down and have this clarity, you have a foundation of knowing who you are, and then all of a sudden adversity comes, you have a sense of true north. You know how to rebound to that. You know how to deal with it. It's amazing how that gives you a sense of stability or security that I certainly didn't have. I felt like I went through life very fragile, right, for a long period of time. That criticism, self-doubt, failure, setbacks, those things would really knock me down and wound me in ways that I often didn't feel capable, right? But when you know who you are, it gives you a sense of resilience. It gives you a sense of grit. And so, getting to the notion of the navigation system, I don't know, again, if anyone else knows what the specific percentage is, but I've heard that commercial airlines are off target, off course, over 90% of the time that they're in air. So, you got a flight going from LAX to Florida, we'll say, over 90% of the time, because you have a variety of wind conditions and, something in the path, they have to change course because of, other flights that are in the path, whatever those things might be. I don't even know if those are the things that get a plane off course, but I'm going to assume that they are.
Yeah.
However, flights are incredibly reliable, right, at getting you to exactly within probably inches of, where they intend to go. And so it doesn't deter them, just even the fact that they are off course all the time, they still end up at their destination. And why is that? Why do you think that is the case, that they are so reliable at getting at where they intend to go?
I mean, they've defined it right from the start. I mean, they
Right.
it's interesting when you think about the digital coordinates. This is where I'm going. This is, you mentioned, by the way, hey, real quick. So I was actually asked to speak at my high school graduation, and I quoted M. Scott Peck. I've not really thought about his writings for a long time, but a great author. I love this idea of, when you mentioned true north versus magnetic north, right? Very different.
Yeah.
There is a true north, but magnetic north is influenced by, whatever else, right? So it's constantly kind of moving around. And that makes me think too, then, when a flight leaves, LAX and it's heading to, New York or whatever, or Nashville here, they've got literal pinpoint numbers that define that space.
Yep.
And when you drill down to that, right, back to this whole idea of my definition of success, I am very unique. My definition of success is not yours. It's not Lisa's. It's not,
Yeah.
The rest of my friends and family, right? We all have a sense of what causes us to be happy and our joy to rise and our peace to be rich. What is, by the way, what is richness, right? What's richness to you versus me? And real quick, a little bit of a sidetrack. We were watching that show Sabrina the other night, with Greg Kinnear and Harrison Ford, and Sabrina's dad was the chauffeur, right?
Right.
He talked about his definition of success, driving the Larrabees around and reading wonderful books up in the carriage house and that kind of thing. And I and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what kind of a man wants to be a chauffeur and read? But you know what? That's for him to decide.
Yeah.
It's obviously a little bit of a fairy tale, but we all have our definition of success. And I think that the richness component there, I look back at, a couple years ago after going through, the True North Blueprint, right? Your course helped me dial in on those things with a clear vocabulary on what I have defined as success. And so when I keep those things front and center, this idea of course correcting, or what you said, setbacks, right? So you're, okay, well, it's going to get me back on the road here. It's like, well, I know exactly who I'm rolling toward then. And what's fascinating about that is it not only is pulling me kind of forward in a motivational way, but I feel incredibly peaceful knowing that I'm not living someone else's expectations of me. I find that for myself, and that autonomy piece is really powerful. It's crazy.
It's huge. I think that, feeling like that you're living a life by choice, right? That, what I'm choosing to do. So if that's being a chauffeur, right, it's not because I got stuck, right? And I had bigger dreams or aspirations, or I have strengths that I don't utilize, but I feel too scared to be able to change that. When you feel like, no, I'm doing this and I'm choosing to serve people in a way that's meaningful to me, it doesn't matter really what you do, right? It's really about that mindset. It's about choosing to live with autonomy and having freedom. I've seen, probably jobs that most of us would think wouldn't be particularly fulfilling. And, I would never choose that job, but, it's picking up trash, whatever it might be, but you have people out there who absolutely feel like that's the most important job in the world, right? That the way that they think through it is that they've got certain skills, they've got a purpose behind that they're making the world a cleaner place for people to live in, right? That they're removing, obstacles so that people can have, their greatest experience on a playground, whatever it might be. And they feel like their job is so damn important, right? And because of that, they're filled with fulfillment and they are massively successful. There's no, way about it. I don't care what anybody's definition of success is. If you're living a life by choice and with autonomy, right, that's successful. We actually know it's the greatest predictor of happiness, right? Autonomy and feeling like your life is, and yet the research on that showed that less than 20% of the people surveyed, it was like a massive survey, had I think over 10,000 people. So it was a very large number that we could probably extrapolate out then that this is true of a larger section of the population. But it was it was right around 20% of the people felt like their life, reflected autonomy, that they felt like their life was a reflection of important choices to them.
And I kind of wonder too, though, if because here's the funny thing is you can have that sense, that feeling, right? I'm not living the life. But then what? You don't go back to neutral. It's not like you don't go back to nothingness. If you've not defined those things that are most precious to you, most courageous, most, those things that I like to say, the things that give your goosebumps, right? It's like, man, I look back on my dad, he would get just excited about making things out of metal and wood, and incredibly gifted in that area. His mind was so analytical and mathematical, that kind of thing. And the thought of me following in his footsteps not only was very intimidating, because I didn't have ability in that area, but at the same time, I felt like a duck out of water, right? Because it wasn't intrinsic, wasn't true to my nature. And now that I've gotten absolutely crystal clear on those things that are me, a very clear definition of success, the way that that's playing out in my life is borderline magnificent. There's so many days I'm in a conversation with someone and I feel like I'm flying. Even I'll be honest, I did a musical event this last weekend that about. I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk about it. But what's fascinating, Eddie? For the first time, actually not the first time, now the first time here. So this is my fourth time doing this particular event. I had 3 people come up to me afterwards, and they said, "I love what you said," and it was like, wow, I can sing, right? I understand the gift I've been given.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, when someone says, David, I love what you said, that really meant a lot to me, right? Because I that's very intrinsic to me. When I say something to somebody, unless I'm just being a goofball, I really want to, I want to impart something that makes their life richer, right? My number 2 word, core value, is inspiration. To really breathe life into somebody, help them remember this is, whose you are and who you are, and to validate those things that I see as really wonderful in the way they've been made. And so it was that was a really neat moment there to kind of get that feedback on me being the finest version of me.
Yeah. It really, if you think about what the coordinates are, right, and you're hinting at them right now, or you actually, I think, identified at least two of the three, maybe all three of the ones that I think are the key to knowing what true north is and to maximizing autonomy, right?
Yeah.
And I think foundationally, the first one is knowing your core values, right? That's just, and it's not just knowing them, but it's knowing how to implement them, right? Understanding what they mean specifically to you, understanding why they're important to you, and then knowing how, making sure that the decisions you make, that the relationships you choose, the goals you're pursuing, right, that they are consistent with these core values. We know there's ample research around this thing of core values, right? That when you feel like, what matters most to you is what you're consistently focusing on, you feel capable of overcoming just about anything, right? It actually changes your internal narrative about who you are and what you're capable of. And you believe that you're capable of overcoming your external circumstances. That's a game changer, right?
And what's fascinating is even when you said that, the first thing that I thought of, it changes my chemistry.
Yeah.
Instead of cortisol, I've got dopamine. I mean, I love the way that God made our bodies to, a thought literally generates a hormone in our bodies. We talk about those feel-good hormones all the time, right? And it's like, what a rush. It's not just this arbitrary, cosmic, you have to be good and kind and make a difference in the world. It's so much better than that. And here's what's fascinating too, is when you extrapolate that from your life into your family's life, into your church, your business, you see that ripple effect. It's real.
Oh yeah.
And it's realized, and the return on investment, that you get to visually, financially, tangibly experience in your sphere of influence is so palpable. It's realized, and I just love that.
Yeah. I'd love to throw an experiment out there, right? So one, I'd love to challenge anyone that's listening and to put this out there to define your values. We've got a couple of tools or instruments that we use that I think are the best tools that we've come across in our program. Happy to send a link to someone or kind of share what I think are some of the best instruments out there. But define your values and then spend a week intentionally choosing to be out of alignment with them, right? And watch how unhappy and how stressed and how much conflict you experience both in your relationships, in your external environment, and your internal environment. Right? And then you spend a week. I love, by the way, William Zachary Murray is just dropping some great quotes here, and so I appreciate his participation and contribution here. But defining your values and then just feeling like you are aligned with them. As you said, when I just take time in the day to affirm, right, this is what really matters, this is what's important to me, it settles me down. Like it creates this calm within me, and it clarifies where all of a sudden there's all this, distraction within my head, right? These competing things about I got to do this, I'm feeling pressure, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and all these things. And all of a sudden, right, I find my true north, I get settled down, and I feel like, okay, let's go now, right? The second piece of the coordinates that I think are absolutely essential if you want to maximize autonomy and find your true north are, I mentioned the words intrinsic motivation, right? I mean, it literally, intrinsic motivation means something that you're choosing because it's autonomous. So it's like within the definition, right? It's a choice that's important to you. You know that they're using strengths, competencies that you have, right? You have confidence in them, and you actually really enjoy building on these skills and strengths. And then it has impact or purpose or meaning that's really significant to you. When your choices line up with that, you are going to find, right, that is where your greatest productivity, your greatest performances, your greatest joy, that's where you maximize, right? I'm crushing it, but my joy and experience internally is matched, if not exceeded. I had to send a proposal to someone this week for, something that has a lot of potential. So I put a lot of time and effort into this proposal and, kind of mapping that out. And the initial response I got was, hey, this is a lot to take in. Let me think about this. And initially, right, that kind of triggered like, oh no, I started to kind of stress about it. But then I just asked myself, hey, when you put this proposal together, was it because you needed the affirmation and validation of this person? Or was it because this is what you truly believe in, right? So whether this person ends up working and kind of using this proposal or not, it felt really good to put that together. And I 100% stand behind it. Anyways, I found complete peace afterwards and just recognizing that I was intrinsically motivated in how I put that together. And so of course we have, some really strong, powerful tools on how to define, what intrinsically motivates you in different roles in your life. So whether that be at work, whether that be at home. And if you want to be a committed husband or dad or wife or, whatever, defining what intrinsically motivates you to be a great husband, to be a great dad, to be great in your business is a complete and utter game changer.
Can I take this to a even more kind of a tangible level? So, this week already, like I mentioned, there's some really, really tough obstacles. So I guess I've kind of defined on my wall, my core values, obviously God, wisdom, inspiration, beauty, impact. But here's what's fascinating. So I've had 3 situations, even today, I don't have answers for. I could probably spout something off, make something up that sounded kind of good and this and that. But what's fascinating is because one of my core values is wisdom, well, I don't have to have the wisdom of the universe, right? But I have resources. I've got great literature, right? God's word. I've got men and women that I've surrounded myself with who are wiser than I am. So what's fascinating is the tangibility of this, the touchability of it is, you know what? I don't know how to handle this. So I actually reached out to a couple of people and said, what would you do? And I got some really great wisdom from that. So on a very real level, when I lasered in on those things that I have already predefined as most important to me, it helped me to solve some problems this week and today. And just, I'm not Superman, right? I don't have to be, but by gum, when I lay my head down at night, kind of the 80-20 rule, we're human. I want to know that for the most part, the vast majority of the time, I was acting in alignment with the person that I really want to be, because it makes me more joyful, more courageous, more peaceful. And then, by the way, you know what? I got to see the impact of that. You talk about the virtuous loop, right? I got to see the David Osk shaped impact on this person. And guess what? Tomorrow morning, it's going to make me want to be more of me. And of course, we can see that then happen in family, individuals first and foremost, right? That's where everything starts. And families, organizations, and businesses, and the world, that ripple effect. But just the opposite is true. When we do not know that, there's this internal narrative going on that who knows what, right? Whatever the wind is blowing that day. And when we feel that insecurity, and this is getting real deep here, but I think in our world right now, I think there's a lot of that insecurity and stuff going on. Well, nobody can really feel that for long. So then they're like, you know what? I'm going to find a cause I can get involved in and get really angry about something, because that emotion is way more palatable than what I'm feeling inside. But I think it can just be way better than that, right? To have top down, inside out generosity and wisdom, to pour out to one another. And it just it disarms a lot of that nonsense, especially when you think about marriage, and family, and if you run a small business like I do, it's like, man, it's amazing how those bedrock coordinates solve a lot of problems.
I love it. I was listening to a conversation between Amy Porterfield and Donald Miller, and they were talking about at one point, the kind of what happens when they experience setbacks and the challenges. So kind of similar conversation. It wasn't the overall topic of their conversation, but it was a brief moment in it. And Amy Porterfield said that, when things really get tough, she reminds herself, she has to ask herself, who am I? And once she, kind of reminds herself, this is who I am, then what she needs to do gets clear, right? So it's very similar to what we do, like the exact process of what we lay out for people, so that they have that true north really dialed in. But it was just fascinating. Is that's exactly what we talk about, and then to hear her say that's what she's done. And Donald Miller, of course, has written out his eulogy, and so he says that every morning either he rewrites it or reads it, right? So it reminds him of what his ultimate destination, right? So he's kind of locked in. This is the impact I want to have. This is the person I want to be. These are the things that I really want to accomplish in life, so that it keeps propelling him forward, right? It creates that true north magnetism.
Yeah.
And it's not just the electromagnet, right? It's not reading the environment. It's like, nope, this is a true north that's important to me, that pulls him forward. So just to get into the third coordinate, so I know we're gonna have to wrap up here in just a moment, is really dialing in what are your unique strengths, right? And we love specifically the character strengths. I just think when you know what, characteristics are really important to you, and then not just knowing what they are, but defining how you want to use them, right? That feels like, yes, these are exactly the way I want to use it, right? I'm having exactly the impact that I want to have, as you were just mentioning a second ago, right? So powerfully. And so when you really dial that in and you figure out, this is, I want to use my wisdom and my curiosity and, my emotional intelligence at home with my wife and kids. And I've got that mapped out, right? And I've written out my eulogy as well. So I know exactly what I hope that they say at the end of my life, right? I've got the reverse engineered, the ultimate destination of where I'm heading to. And so, that creates really powerful, when you look at a plane and it's got the dialed in, first off, a plane knows it's a plane, right? I'm not saying it's self-aware, right?
Yeah.
But it understands what tools it has, right? In order for it to fly, how it deals with adversity. I don't know what those tools are, but I'm going to assume that, the engineers that created it at the very least do,
Yeah.
so it understands what it needs to do to get and how to deal with adversity. And then once you've got a navigation, once you've got those coordinates set in, the beautiful thing is whatever comes your way, right, you can choose the path that best fits, right? You can choose the scenic route. Or if you think about, putting in your car, if I haven't put in a very specific location, we went to Mammoth, over the past week. So if I just put in Central California, right, or the mountains, I don't know what my navigation system would do. It would probably just default and just be like, not get me anywhere. But when I give it a specific address, it'll give me options. It'll tell me, do you want to take toll roads, right? Do you want the fastest route? Do you want the most scenic route? Would you like to, all these different things? And that's the beautiful thing, right? When hey, I know exactly where I'm going, right? I know I've got the tools to be able to get there. I know why it's important for me to get there. It almost becomes inevitable that you get there.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, and I often like just to back into it, right? If you don't have those things in place, well, then it's pretty obvious. You don't have a chance. There's not even a chance. We know that we live in a world that is really broken. So crazy curveballs come our way. There's no getting around it. But when you define those things that are bedrock, and I love by the way that, when you put your blueprint forth, right? It's always starting with who. Our culture is telling us all the time, well, you got to start with your why. You got to have a why. I get it. But if you have not defined those things that are absolutely bedrock that you stand upon, even when you cannot take action, right? When there's no actionable items, but the walls that are around you, those things your feet are standing upon. I mean, good luck. You have to have those things. And so I'm with you. The analogy, the plane analogy makes complete sense.
Yeah, and as I think you're really pointing and highlighting, when you know who you are, it changes your relationship with yourself, right? And I know some people might feel like this overly focus on yourself, that somehow it's like a negative or a selfish thing, but I completely disagree with that, right? I think this notion of when I'm focused on other people, but I don't have a healthy relationship with myself, guess what? I create unhealthy relationships with other people. I expect too much from them.
Yeah, it's basic it's just basic self-awareness. I mean, we're not talking, become a narcissist here, right? We're talking just delightful, rich self-awareness.
Yep. Yeah, and it really, when you have a healthy self-understanding and you know what lights you up internally and you're focused on those things, right? It really makes you feel more secure. It makes you feel more fulfilled. And when you're coming from a place of security, you're coming from a place of, kind of fulfillment, it actually empowers you then to bring more to your relationships, so that when you focus outward, I'm not looking at what's in it for me, right? Like, fill me up, affirm me, and make me feel better. Instead, I'm going into it with, how can I bless you, right? How can I serve you? I'd love to challenge anyone out there. I know I put the values challenge, but if you went through a process where you were able to really feel like, I know who I am and I have security, if that doesn't radically amplify all the results you get in every area of your life, I don't know what I'm going to offer on that, but bottom line, it won't happen, right? It's the most powerful thing that you can do. if you want to not let the endless amount of setbacks, opposition, self-doubt to ultimately deter you, right? So suddenly now you're heading maybe northwest or northeast, or maybe you're heading due south, right? You're heading in the wrong direction. And if you're heading even just slightly off course, right, over a long enough period of time, that can end up in a business that ends up, kind of going belly up. It can end up in a relationship, a friendship, right, that ends sour. It can end up in a marriage or with kids, right, that ultimately are dissatisfied and broken relationships. So knowing your true north is so important, right? If you want to feel like at the end of your life, man, I feel so happy and grateful, right? And this is exactly where I wanted to end it up. You have to know where that's going. You have to know where that's pointing. Otherwise, the wind's going to blow you any which direction. The likelihood that wind blows you in exactly the direction that you hope for, right? And that's not even autonomy. That's like, that's not, that's allowing chance and circumstances to define you, right? So we'll wrap up there that clearly we think it's essential to dial in, where is it that you're going? Kind of think of life through this lens of this navigation system, that when you have clarity in who you are, what tools you have to get you to the destinations, right? How you want to use those, when you know why it's important for you to get to that destination, right? Then all of a sudden life gets fun. Then you can start applying choice. What route do I want to go there? Do I want to get there the quickest way, or do I want to go and take, the scenic route? Life suddenly gets filled with all kinds of amazing choices that give your life whatever it is that's important you, joy, deeper friendships, impact. But if you're just kind of taking whatever comes your way, right, and you haven't figured out that thing, if you go through life one of two ways, either knowing who you are, or trying to find out who you are from everyone around you, these are two very different pathways. You go through life either having answered the question, who am I, or trying to find the answer through everyone that you meet. To me, man, that is powerful, right? And I promise you that the path of knowing who you are is much, much more gratifying, rich, joyful than the one of trying to find that answer through everything you do, everyone you meet. So
well said.
Happy New Year, everyone. We'd love, thank you for the people who participated, especially, William. I think there's someone on YouTube too that I'm not sure exactly what that means, but appreciate the contribution. If there's a topic that you'd love to hear from us, if there's anything that way that we can bless you or serve you, of course we'd love to do that. So and thanks for everybody that's watching. Yeah. All right, my man. We'll be back next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.